Hey, how's it
Hello,
going?
how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Really well, thank you. Thanks for connecting with me.
Of course, yeah.
Why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself? I've seen a couple of your videos on YouTube and on Instagram. You're doing some good things, putting your message out there, which is
Yeah.
great.
So I guess it depends. Where do you want to start? I guess like the content I'm making at this point, it's like from my heart. It's like what's really resonant for me right now. Um, I've I'm obviously pretty passionate about, I guess you could call it, generally self-help. I would say like more, I guess you could call it human optimization. For me, it's like, uh, so just some context. I just started my last year of a clinical mental health grad program at a university called Naropa in Boulder, Colorado.
Yeah.
The the full title of the track is Contemplative Psychotherapy and Buddhist Psychology. So this is an LPC track. It's pretty alternative. And so my interests are in things like Buddhism, meditation, psychedelics.
Mm.
Ultimately, again, I want to change how we perceive of what we call mental health, because even that term is limited. I want to examine our assumptions of who we are, what's real, what's not, so that we can create the most deep, fulfilling, meaningful experience for ourselves internally and externally. And so, again, mental health seems just a little rigid. I want to go beyond being like okay and functioning to functioning optimally. And I don't think there's really a solid limit to what that means. So, I guess exploring that is generally how I might answer that question.
Incredible. How did you have your spiritual awakening?
hmm Yeah, so it started when I moved to Colorado. I grew up in upstate New York, moved out here to do undergrad, and I love the mountains and the music scene in Colorado is incredible. Started eating a lot of psychedelics. This is in my early 20s. LSD, mushrooms, DMT, kind of like all that. And I went through these waves of intense highs of like deep liberation, being in the mountains, being in with community, dancing at festivals, being seen and witnessed, and having these huge highs where I felt so free. And then the seasons change and things get cold and dark, and I'm back in school, and I start to go back to a more reserved experience, my habitual way of being. And there's nothing wrong with any of it, but what was wrong was that I resisted coming back to myself in a more internal experience as opposed to the more external experience that I heavily favored. So having these waves of opening and closing, and then mixed with a heavy dose of resistance to the closing, when things would change, when you would come down, that resistance led to intense, self-hate, depression, resistance to life. And this manifested as crippling depression. And then the next year came and same thing. I went in the mountains, ate a bunch of psychedelics, and I felt great again. I was like, oh, I saved myself again. Thank God that's over. Winter comes, same deal. So I'm just, again, really resisting a part of my experience. And that's, again, manifesting as this crippling depression. And people see me today and just assume this is the person I've always been. And when I was depressed like that, I could legitimately not even make eye contact with people. People would speak to me and I would not even hear what they said. That's how dissociated I was from my body, my mind, my whole experience. So a lot of pain. And I graduated undergrad that year. Also, my girlfriend of 4 years broke up with me because of this depression. I couldn't show up for her. I couldn't show up for
Right.
myself. So it was like a shit ton of darkness. I go to Asia. First thing I do is I bike across all of Vietnam, and I'm still sort of depressed. And I realize I'm doing these amazing things. Like I'm a kayak guide in Halong Bay. My friends are like, dude, I'm so jealous of you. And I'm like in my head, and I still am like, yo, I can't even enjoy this because I'm like stuck in this like depression, this self-hate, this never enoughness. So this is right as COVID's happening, just for context too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Vietnam closes. country. I go to India because I'm like, I don't know how people find a way to end this suffering that is my life, but India seems like a promising start. So I go to India. I go fly into Delhi, go straight up to Rishikesh, which is one of the holy cities on the Ganges, and I go to this ashram. And it was supposed to be like I think like a 5-day yoga meditation thing. And this again is COVID's happening, so the whole country closes down as I'm at this ashram, and no one can leave. Very serendipitous and very
Yeah.
interesting thing in my opinion. But it was like the universe was like, you want to find something of value, stop looking around. How about you just sit with yourself for months as the world is potentially ending? Now what? And so it was really deep, really transformative. And I remember I was doing work exchanges this whole time I was traveling, and I didn't really have that much money because I just like graduated from undergrad.
Yeah.
Um, and so I'm helping to build a hospital at this ashram because that was like my exchange. Like I'll build a hospital and I get to stay here and you feed me because no one can leave. And so it was yeah, the natural, I guess, exchange. And I remember my dad was like begging me to come home because I didn't have the money to pay for the plane ticket home because the US was charging people like 2,500 bucks for a one
Yeah.
way. And I did not have that money. So my dad was like, please come home. We don't know how bad this COVID thing is gonna be. I don't want you to be trapped in India if, things get way worse. And I was like sort of with that, but I was still in this depression and I was still like, I haven't found this thing called enlightenment. I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna have to live with my parents. I'm still gonna be depressed. I'm gonna be a loser my whole life. And that was ultimately the realization that did it is if I have to be a loser my whole fucking life, okay, okay, I can't do it anymore. If I have to be a loser, I just can't keep resisting it. Fuck it, I'm a loser. I live with my parents. I work at a gas station the rest of my life. Just embracing worst case scenario. And from that, there was this break. And I remember I just started sobbing. And I was like moving some pipes. And I remember I dropped the pipes and I look at the light hitting the trees. It was like right in the evening. And I remember I was like, it was like that the first time I could see the trees and the leaves. And it was so beautiful. And it was like, again, I was crying from this emotional release and then at the beauty of it all. And this was like I didn't even know what happened. Like I had to like make meaning out of that event later. Um, but that was the first big break of fuck it. I can't keep resisting this. I like that's even it was like I don't even like to put words to it. It's more of just uh, it's just a it's like a release. And that was the first big break where things started to move and this depression that was locked up in me forever started to move on and I could get perspective, I mean, on all of it and these things that I'd been asking for, like insights into myself, into reality, into meaning, what's worth doing, what's real, what's true. They started to really flow from this deep somatic release. Um, and then, so that was the beginning. And then I worked on I came back to the States like my dad wanted me to. Worked on a Sikh community, working on the farm and doing a bunch of Kundalini yoga. This was Culsa Family Farms in Espanola, New Mexico. Then I wanted to really focus on sitting meditation because I found a lot in that. And I'm not doing any psychedelics at this point too. Because I went through that phase. And at this point in my life, I'm completely sober for, yeah, about 2 years, a little bit more. So I want to get into sitting meditation. I knew, Buddhism and Zen specifically really emphasizes sitting. So I find a Zen center in Vermont that's doing like an apprenticeship program called the Monastic Academy. So this place is a nonprofit that helps to work with kind of like existential crisis, with people developing AI, public policy, all of these things. And they're a legitimate like Rinzai Zen center. So like getting up at 4:30 in the morning, chanting, meditating for an hour and a half every day in silence. You sit, you eat in silence, then you work, then you do a practice, and then you sit and chant again and go to bed. So this rigidity and this really sitting with the mind and sitting with the projections of the mind, which is, in my experience, really painful. In retreat, for instance, seeing like someone glances at you weird and you're like, oh, fuck them. Like, like what they don't know me. What did I do to them? This is in the context of a meditation retreat. And then you could talk to them maybe the next day or that day, and they'll be like, oh, wasn't meaning anything at all. And you see how the mind is a mirror. How, oh, maybe I was projecting something onto them.
Mm.
And then extrapolating that to how deep does that go to this world, to the people in it, and to my life period? How much am I projecting? How much is just a given? And asking that question and keeping it open, and then seeing how deep that goes. So then I found a teacher from, well, after that, I go to another Zen center for 8 months in New Mexico, Bodhimanda. Then I start this graduate program. Um, so that's been my since like COVID. That's been my 4 years. It's been insane and transformative, to say the least.
Incredible. What a journey it's been for you. I noticed that you probably got a message in the last 6 months or so to start to put your voice out there. Tell me about that process.
Oh, the great question. I'm glad you asked. So again, as these insights started rolling in, I've always loved to talk. I've been gifted with the gift of gab, as my dad says, just talking. And then mixing that with a heavy interest in spirituality and I guess, like I said, optimization of experience. I realized I had such a potent, gift. I've been gifted these insights and I've been gifted this ability to communicate. And it's so vulnerable to put myself out there. At least it was at first. Because there's, all that resistance. Who do you think you are? What are your friends from high school gonna think? And it's like all
Mm,
that bullshit. And people were like, bro, you need a podcast. Like, you need to make some sort of content. People kept telling me this for years. And again, just seeing the impact I had on people was like, okay, there's something here actually. And I just resisted. It was like, oh, I don't have to. I don't really do social media like that, which was true. Like when I was traveling, I basically didn't use it. I was just simplifying
yeah.
different phases of life. But over and over again, it kept coming to me like legitimate words. It was like, you've been given something. You've been given these gifts. I know you see it. You've been given these insights. I know that you see it. Who are you to keep them to yourself? Who are you to take these gifts and die with them without giving them back? Look at the state of the world and look at what you can do for people, regardless of right, wrong, true, or false. Look at the impact of your words. And that kept hitting me where I could literally not look away. And then I was like, fuck it. I just have to put this out because I haven't found a motherfucker like me on Instagram. And I've been looking. I'm like, yo, where are they at? And I was like, okay, there's a niche to fill. I have something to offer. And it was like, for me, it was like coming to terms with this like insecurity of, oh, what are people gonna think? To this radical letting go, getting out of my own way and being like, hey, I got something to say. You can like it or not. I need to get this thing out of me, actually. It's like there's something in me that I need to get out. And like that more than anything, beyond the likes, beyond the followers, beyond the impact, beyond whatever comes out of it, that is the reason why I did it. Is the reason why I still do it. Is there's something that's in me that's like has to come out. And it's like it feels like such a release when I make the content, when I make the videos. It's like, ah, I did it. And then then it builds the next day, next week, whatever. And so yeah, that's why I started making the videos.
So what has the process been like for you? You put out the videos on YouTube, Instagram. How has the process been for you to do that? What's it felt
Mhm.
like?
Yeah, so waves of resistance,
Mm.
waves of who do you think you are? What do you think you have? This the second guessing, the um there's a beauty in it, I guess. if you're familiar with IFS, so these different parts of us, internal family systems therapy. There's maybe a part that wants to protect you from being ridiculed. Okay, I see that part, I honor that part, and regardless, I still have to get this thing out of me. So, um, it was like meditating quite a bit actually. I again, since India and the Zen centers, I meditate daily, um, 45 minutes in the morning at least, and then sometime at night. And this gives me the stability and the clarity to see, oh, okay, there's fear here, there's apprehension, there's uncertainty, there's this desire to give, there is this thing I need to get out of me. Seeing all these things clearly and acting accordingly. So making sure what I get out is um authentic. Being and also coming to a point of acceptance. Hey, people are gonna hate on me. People do hate on me. People hate on literally anything, and that's just how the world works. Can't make everyone happy, and I'm cool with that. And it's coming back to, again, for me, meditation is that ground, that stability that allows me to do what I have to. Because again, in this sense, like people want to point the finger, I can sit with that. I can be okay with that. They can say mean things, they can have dissenting opinions. That's obviously allowed. And just sitting with it, feeling it in my body. Oh, it hurts when people poke me. And then just feeling that and being like, oh, but that's okay. So a lot of coming back to what for me is very stabilizing, very grounding, seeing this thing clearly, again, this fear and this deep desire to serve and to give and to make this world better for all of us. Because for me, it's like this body is going to be dust sooner rather than later. And
Yeah.
what you are was never just this body. And when we see that, how do we live? How do we act? For me, it's like, I just want to make this better for future me's. Knowing that I am the kids running around, I am the trees, I am the clouds in the sky, knowing I'm all of it. I just want to set them up for success so that they don't have to deal with the same bullshit I dealt with or even worse. So, what do I have to do given, again, the gifts that I've been given, the skills that I've been given? What do I have to do? What am I being called to do to make this place what, if you like the word God, what God wants, what creation wants, what source wants? How do I do that? How do I listen effectively to really discern that? And yeah, I mean, for me, it's like that is the recognition that is so liberating, is realizing I'm not just this, I'm this. Act accordingly. And realizing, hey, this is dust sooner rather than later. So yeah, just again bringing that to mind and letting that be a source of courage, a source of fuck it, I gotta say it. You know what I mean? That kind of energy. And yeah, just remembering that, letting these insights move you because these insights have to be practiced, in my opinion, in order to really sink. If I think this when I'm tripping on mushrooms or in a meditation retreat, that's beautiful. But if I fall back into this habitual way of seeing where I am only this being right here, this mind and body, and I act accordingly, then I'm reaffirming a view where that's real. And so for me, if I want to be free, I have to serve others. Because
Mm.
then this is not what I am. This is what I am, and I'm proving that through action. So
Mm.
it's almost like, again, I have to do it. I have to do what I'm called to do. And I really believe everyone has their own unique skill. I mean, this is obvious. Everyone has their own unique experiences, gifts, skills. And I know that we need them all. We need people like me to yap because that's what I do best. And we need like teachers, educators, leaders, politicians, lovers, artists, them all to, honestly, in my opinion, step out of the way and let something beyond the mind take the wheel.
Mm.
Something really deep in that for me. Really liberating and also very powerful, in my own experience.
Have there been people in your journey that have inspired you? Any teachers that have particularly resonated with you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell me about some of those people.
Totally. So I'll start with, at first, when I was getting into meditation, it was this Zen teacher, Shinzen Young. I forget where he lives now, but he heavily influenced Soryu for All, which is the head teacher of the Monastic Academy, which I was studying Zen at. His book, The Science of Enlightenment, is just so well put. It appeals to the Western mind very well. It's almost yeah, very logically oriented. So that guy, he started me on the deep meditative path, Shinzen Young. Um, and this teacher who absolutely changed my life, and in my opinion, there has not been another that is even close to him, is Robert Bea. This guy, he taught at Gaia House in the UK, and he just passed away in 2020, unfortunately. But his perspective on freedom, on life, I mean, on how we are constructing experience at deep levels, his understanding of emptiness, which is shunyata in Buddhism, and the implications of that. I have not seen any teacher, and not to take anything away from, contemporary teachers, but like none. Jack Cornfield, Thich Nhat Hanh, nothing close. This guy, the depth of his teaching and how zoomed out he was, like, able to take a stance at. Like he's here looking in. I will say this till I die. I've propped him up on my socials. I would love to more because I just throw his talks on when I'm in the car, when I'm going to sleep, and legitimately I'll be going to bed and like about to fall asleep. I have to get up and like write down this quote because I'm like, that is crazy. Like when it's juicy like that and it sinks, like, and the amount of freedom. I would love another like more time to talk more about what he taught and for me is a whole another demon that I would love, a future opportunity to talk about. But yeah, I would say Robert Bea. And we can talk more about specifically why I feel that way. But I don't want know
Yeah,
where you
tell
want
me,
to.
tell me about it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna write his name down because
Yep.
I have not heard of him before. Is
Yeah.
he well
And
known within the Buddhist kind of philosophy
you
teaching
gotta be in
circles?
the cut. You kind of gotta be in the cut of Buddhism, like
Mm,
the deep in it to like find this guy. He has a book called Seeing That Freeze, that is relates to one of his main teaching points. That is different ways of seeing construct different experiences, and those experiences it literally change what we are picking up on through the five senses. So there's a lot of power in that. And so you also, if you want to write it down, the Hermes Amara Foundation, his students set up this website for him that catalogs his teachings really well. It's got all of his talks for free, videos, interviews, on everything from loving kindness to emptiness to what he calls soul making, which is again, in my opinion, a evolution of Buddhism from a deep understanding of emptiness. So again, he has so many amazing points. I would say I'm going to try to summarize it. So from his teaching, there is a deep, almost necessity in recognizing emptiness or shunyata, which basically is the crux of all three schools of Buddhism, which is that there is no one way that you are, that the world is, that any of this is. It's empty of inherent existence. It needs you and your belief in it to manifest as such in very deep ways. So, recognizing again, there is no me. There's a story of me, and I'm granting my belief to that story. And all of a sudden, it appears to be really like that. But how real is that from the start? You can tell a very different story. And if you believe it, it's also equally true. So which one is it? And then this is bringing you to an understanding of it's neither, and it's both. In a relative sense, it's whatever you say. You are whoever you tell yourself you are. And that's just completely not true because that's just a story of fabrication. So this is very tricky. It can be difficult territory because it's again it's the crux of Buddhism for a reason. If it was
mm.
easy to teach, it would be we'd all get it and we'd all be enlightened to be honest. But I mean whatever that means. But so understanding that, sitting with that in meditation, letting that sink, just really asking the question, how real is this? And when I say this, I mean me, the story of me. How real is this world? What am I assuming to be real? And can I really examine that and see, how real is this? How do I know? How am I sure? Am I just listening to the collective and what's been spoon-fed? Or am I listening to my direct experience? I mean, what is my way of knowing? Um, so there's a lot in that, but basically, a ground in emptiness is essential for what he would teach next. And again, emptiness being there is no real you. You are the story of yourself. You're the myth of your own creation. And same with the world. It's the myth of your own creation. And this is a collective creation, largely. And so from that, what he then created is what he calls soul making. And I don't, if anyone sees this, I'm not an expert on this. I just love Robert Bea. So please correct me, call me, get in touch with me if you see this. But soul making is kind of a continuation of emptiness, where it's if everything is lacking any inherent existence, and we are only the myth and the story of ourselves. How deep does that go? And what then can we construct, knowing that there is no real you that you're gonna find if you just deconstruct enough? You'll just hit this void, this emptiness. And from that emptiness, we can build anything we want. And with that direct seeing into emptiness, you're not questioning, is this really me? Am I being an imposter? Am I just a poser right now? Because there is no real you. It's only everyone else's perception of you is their story. And your perception of yourself is your story. They're all equally made up. From that, there's a lot of where it's interesting. I see emptiness. It's like the truth to end all objective truth. It's the knowing to end all solid knowing. There's no solidity anymore. It's all fluid. My experience of self, my experience of world is fluid. And everyone else, although there's a whole culture telling me, no, this is what's real. Science is real. Matter is objectively true. Your imagination isn't. That kind of story. That's just a story. And it's although it has a lot of momentum behind it, it is only and forever will be just a story. And from that place of really knowing that, really again running into our assumptions of reality and questioning them, we can deconstruct. And from that, we can reconstruct whatever we want. And this is where something that Rob calls soul making is sort of developed, where you are creating your soul. And soul, he says, in the loosest sense of that term. So soul being something almost ineffable. It's not like a being beyond you that, it's not like the Christian soul. It's just that depth of meaning. It's like a it's feeling, it's a creative spark, it's impulse, it's like the deepest essence of us. And so this soul making process, again, it's complex, but it's you can't unfortunately just create anything you want. It's a co-creation with you and your psyche and grace, actually. Because these images, these stories will come to you, whether you're on a walk or talking to somebody or in meditation, you'll get these images, not just visually, but it can be song lyrics, it can be a sound, it can be a feeling over your body. Um, and these images can start to inform you about reality. And again, not falling for the reductionist, materialist, scientific lens, seeing through that to listen to your direct experience beyond materiality, to construct a world and a self that feels more resonant, more real, maybe more true, more honest, more expansive, rich and meaningful, not being trapped in this cage of objectivity, this cage of certainty, of this is who I am. I'm this unchanging creature. I'm free to flow. I'm free to grow wings, metaphorically speaking, or who knows, physically. I won't put a limit on it, but just from this place of, again, emptiness being almost a prerequisite, and then soul making, listening to resonance, listening to the feeling body, the thinking mind, seeing it as image, as he would say, not mistaking image for objective fact, remembering emptiness, not getting lost in image in the world of our own creation, not getting lost, remembering emptiness. There is a lot of agency in that. There's a profound amount of freedom, even with the story of death. This is what I always come to. This is a story. It is only that. We have this collective view of death where it is something scary to avoid, to run from. And at one level, yeah, I don't want to die. But what even is death? Asking that question, questioning the assumption, is this something to be really that afraid of? Just opening that question, then looking this thing, death, in the eyes, spending time with it, developing a relationship to it, and starting to break it apart, break it down. What is it? How is death constructed? Maybe seeing again at one level how we construct death. When we say linguistically, verbally, that I'm alive right now, when I use the language of life, I am actually unknowingly constructing a death also. There's a duality that's occurring. When I say I'm alive, there must be an end to that, and that's a death. That's why, and this is just subtle how language is constructing our reality, our experience here. And if that's why I don't really say life a lot in my videos, I like to say experience more because it's like it has a different impact actually on the system. Um, but again, just seeing death as a story, how do I know it's something scary? How do I know that the unknown is something scary? Is that something to avoid? Recognizing for what it is, and then an element of having faith. Everything that we know of that's come into fruition, come into life, has left. And do you want to be afraid of that? For me, like death especially, it's almost like it seems like almost naive, like an adolescent frame of mind to think, oh, I'm gonna resist this thing that has to happen my whole life. You're creating so much pain for yourself, like just by resisting the fact that, hey, we're all gonna die. And if we spent the time to just look this thing in the eyes that we call death, not resist it anymore, not run from it, not numb from it, look it in the eyes, we'd see, hey, maybe this actually isn't even something to be afraid of. And maybe on the other side of that, we would again have that recognition of what even am I? Am I even this body and mind? And what convinced you of that to begin with? Just asking these questions, seeing where they lead you. Because again, for me, that contemplation of death is a big part of what led me to see, oh, I am the trees. I'm the kids running around. Where could I go? And at that point, recognizing, as the saying goes, the obstacle is the way. The thing that we fear at the most deepest level, a lot of the time, is what we need to approach in order to really, really be free. Here, give me one sec. But yeah, that was a lot. Thank you for listening to all
No,
that.
that's
But
wonderful. That's
yeah,
wonderful. Let me ask you this question. So you've moved from upstate New York. I'll give you a
yeah,
moment here.
yeah.
It's plugging in
No,
your
I'm good.
charger.
You are. Yeah.
So you've moved to Boulder, Colorado from upstate New York to finish your graduate. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I started a graduate program. It's again, it's contemplative psychotherapy and Buddhist
Yep.
psychology.
Yep.
And I moved to Colorado for undergrad in Fort Collins, different city. But yeah, so I'm living in Boulder right now.
And so what are you doing? Are you like working at the moment, doing anything like that, or just studying full time?
Yeah, no, so I was working for like 2 years waiting tables at a restaurant downtown. And I just got fed up with it and just like a
Mm.
service industry kind of ground me down and I had some
Yeah.
money saved up and I just got hit with student loans, so I'm doing all right right now. So I'm kind of coasting at the moment. I also have gotten some coaching clients I that just hit me up on Instagram and were like, "Hey, do you do coaching?" And I was like, "Not really, but I would." So I'm getting a little bit of income that way, and if I have to get another, real job, then I will whenever, I have to. But right now, again, studying. I just started my internship too, so. And then again, seeing where this like social media slash content stuff can take me, because I
Mm.
mean, I really want to do retreats. I really think for what I'm bringing, it takes time, stillness. I think, the words provide a certain conceptual framework, but then being able to sit in stillness in community,
Yes.
apply these frameworks to let it sink. Um, I think that's what I want to do. That's where I think the biggest growth could come for people relatively quickly. And
Yes.
so yeah, that's again, I want to move out of the limitations of the Western mental health paradigm, because although it definitely, it has benefits, I think it's just limited. And for me, at these pivotal times that we're living in, I don't want to be limited. I want to help people optimally. And like I'm exploring how do I do that actually? Because for me, I don't give a shit like what works for me. I have my own experience, obviously, but I'm curious what helps other people. Because like at this point, that's what's fulfilling for me. And I think that's what, you know, we really need. And to help lift people up, like I said earlier, it's so that everyone is in a position to give their gifts. Because I mean this, like, we need all of them. It's like a puzzle. And it doesn't come together unless we have everybody stepping up to the plate.
One of the reasons I reached out to you, let me just share a bit about me. I've been doing this
Yeah.
work for about 5 or so years and been building social media, been building YouTube and all of these things online. And probably about 6 months ago, I was strongly getting the message that people needed to come together
Mm,
at more in-person
mm,
events.
mm,
And I've been guided to go down the retreat road for quite some time. The message that I was getting intuitively is this isn't something that you'll do alone. This is something that you'll collaborate with other people with. I'm in the process, actually. I'll need to go at the next hour. We've still got like 20 minutes.
yeah.
I'm meeting with somebody who's based in Maui, and she is starting to organize on the ground uh, a type of workshop or retreat there in Maui. And once that will be the first one that I put together, hopefully from the momentum of that, that'll be a yearly, if not more than a couple of times a year, because we're setting up the connections on the ground in Maui. And then we'll be looking at doing other retreats. I've got a contact in Bali
Mm,
and I'm starting to work with her. I'm visiting there in November to hopefully get those connections happening. I've spoke to a woman yesterday who's just moving to Mexico. I want to do that in Mexico as well, and other places like Thailand. And I really sensed that it's a collaborative effort, working with others that are like-minded. And I think that's probably why I reached out to you because I certainly see great potential within you or what's coming through you, really.
mm.
And I just wanted to make contact and see, if there was a connection there, and then perhaps explore how we could collaborate. And certainly with Maui, maybe that's something that you could do a workshop or teach or do something, and we could combine uh, efforts to do so.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds incredible. I'm glad that you reached out. It all happens for a reason, right?
Yes. Yeah,
We're walking
I've
through this.
learned over the years to trust that more and more. You
Yeah.
get these little messages and then you just sort of, you reach out and then you just trust that, there's a greater intelligence beyond the mind body that's synchronizing.
Exactly. Exactly. It's being orchestrated and we get to play our part. I feel blessed. Yeah, thank you. So, I definitely resonate with that. I would love to
Have you
have
been
an
to
opportunity.
Maui before? Have you been to Hawaii?
No, I actually haven't. It's like, again, that's a place that keeps coming up
Yeah.
recently. Like lots of Matt have been, oh, you gotta go to Hawaii, blah blah blah. And I'm like, okay, well, when the time is right, and who knows, maybe the time we'll be right very soon.
I'll tell you what, I got invited to speak about 4 weeks ago in Miami, Florida, and they sent me on this trip, and I didn't really know why I was being sent there. And on the way back, I stopped in Hawaii for a couple of days, and then it was revealed to me why, because they were reacquainting me with the energy of Hawaii, because I've been there twice prior. And they gave me this very strong message: you need to start doing retreats in Maui. And I'm sure you know, obviously, Maui has gone through a cleansing event, and the rebuilding is happening at the moment. And they're really needing tourism there. And I want to work with a lot of these holistic businesses to create something that brings people to Maui again, because there's a
Mhm.
great energy in Hawaii, and it's a very special place. I'm sure you'll have the same view once you've been there. You'll know what I'm pointing toward.
Yeah, I've heard like many people say it's unique, the most beautiful place I've ever been. I'm sure in, more ways than one. So I'm very open to, yeah, wherever this kind of connection will lead. I would love to collaborate in whatever way feels right.
Yeah,
Talk
and I
more. I would
think
love
that, do you teach anything? Like, have you been given, do you either teach meditation or do you do yoga, or are you more just about allowing this, let's say, this energy to come through you? As it's very authentic when I hear you communicate, and when I watch your videos, I sense the authenticity and the originality of what is coming through you, which is quite
yeah.
unique.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So right now, I actually don't teach anything formally.
That's great. Well, you know what? I
Yeah.
love that, because that is the way I work, is I don't ever prepare what I'm going to share. I know
Mhm.
people from the Buddhism path and Hinduism path and non-dualistic duality teachers often work in this way. They open the space up, and then they allow this to come through them. And I love that way of working, really, if you want to call it that. And it's being, or allowing the being to did I cut out there? Do we have an issue with you here? Can you
It
hear me?
was, yeah, rewind like 60 seconds.
Yes. What I was pointing towards is, I think a lot of teachers that probably have inspired you have been those that are in the space of allowing, and rather
Mm,
than to have something that is analytically constructed, is to just holding the space and allow that to come through. And I believe that's what you do when you create videos, right? You just hit record and you allow it to, yes. And it's very, let's say, how do I point towards that? It's a particular quality of
yeah,
transmission that comes through when that occurs.
exactly. Thank you for putting that into words because it is the communication that I'm bringing is more than the language. It's more than the words.
Mm.
It's that, I mean, authentic permission to say, hey, maybe these traditions think this, the yoga traditions think that, Buddhism thinks this, whatever, like science thinks this. I'm gonna say this shit, and I don't know if it aligns at all. You know what I mean? And it's very authentic. And that's the thing. It's like, because for me, when we step out of our own way, who's coming through you? Really? When you see the emptiness of any identity, of any self, it's just a story. Step out of the way. Who are you? And not being limited by any previous tradition, not falling for the trap of objective truth, listening in the body for your own truth, and knowing that to be as valid as others, and then exploring for yourself. So then again, just that radical authenticity and that
Mm.
radical permission to like let yourself speak, let yourself act, let yourself move, let yourself cry. That is that's like what I really want to bring. And it's again, it's deeper than language. It's so yeah, thank you so much for saying that.
Well, I just feel like there's a real authenticity to what you represent. And there's a real lack of what I perceive as ego or trying to be something. It's just really, I mean, you kind of got pushed out of your probably, I don't know, did you grow up shy? Were you quite shy growing up, or just did you hold back a lot when you were younger?
I was shy at first, but I was also I developed into being such a people pleaser
Ah,
because I'm
that's
very
okay,
sensitive.
right. Yes.
Yeah. And I could really tune in. What do people want to hear? And it was so painful because I was just like, oh, I'm just being what these people want. I couldn't really spend time with people because it's too exhausting. And then with this whole kind of break, like starting in India and then at the Zen centers, it was like, fuck it. I'm just gonna say what I gotta say. If people like it or don't like it, like I can't control them. If people don't like me, I never had power to choose if they like me or not. And I never will. But I do have the power to choose if I'm gonna express myself and be authentic. And that is such a fucking release. And again, it's like it's interesting. You said something like there's a lack of ego. Because some people look at me and they're like, "Oh, there's a lot of ego here." And it's interesting on the spiritual path as you get freer and freer with what's coming through you. You can be very extravagant and very defined.
Mm,
And some people would call it ego, but some people, like myself, would call it a letting go. And the lines between ego and egolessness start to really blur.
mm,
Um, and it's again, so then it's like for me, it's more about just letting go. Because it's like a somatic experience. When I'm holding on to, oh, I want people to see me like this, or oh, I'm so wise, it just doesn't feel good. It feels like contractive and limiting, and I'm like, oh, I gotta balance on top of this structure of ego. So I'm just like, oh, just fuck that. I just can't do it. And it's just being authentic just is so much more of a release. It's so much more relaxed. And it's like I don't have anything to prove. I don't have to be in like I don't have to be wise. I don't have to be funny. I don't have to be whatever. And it's just like so much more pleasant actually. And that's what I found is I guess again dwelling on both sides of that, like early in life, like really trying to be a people pleaser and trying to have this image that people like, and then realizing I no, even when I was trying that hard, people still didn't like me all the time. And I realized, oh, I can't do it. So let it go. And then interestingly, people seem to really resonate with that. So
yes.
yeah.
Well, I think what people resonate with is authenticity, and
Hmm.
that people sense at a deeper level. And I think the more authentic you are, the more that people are going to be drawn to what you have to share.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's something deep, probably often unconscious too, that's like when they see authenticity, that authentic part of themselves starts to buzz a little bit. They're like, oh, that looks good. I want some of that. I don't know what it is, but it feels good. And again, in our culture where we've been conditioned into such a rigid structure of what's acceptable, what's right, what a man is, what a man does, what a man doesn't do, for instance, it's so tight and contractive. Um, and I think a lot of people, especially with the mental health crisis, as well as like looming apocalypses of infinite varieties nowadays, I think people are really looking for that release, that letting go into
Yes.
themselves,
Yeah.
and realizing that's such a potent medicine.
Are
Letting
you
go into my
familiar
yeah.
with the work of Lester Levinson, who is no longer living, and he developed a method called the Sedona method? Are you familiar with that method?
No, I'm not.
Look into his teachings. I think you'll really resonate with them. He
What
he's
what is his name?
his name's Lester Levinson. Lesterlevenson, I think it is.
Oh, the Sedona method.
Yeah. He uh he developed a method that allows people to release
Hmm.
all the identifications, the attachments, the aversions that we identify with, and you just let them go and allow a more authentic version. But on YouTube, he's got a number of audio recordings. Have a listen to some of them. He's wonderful. He was very much someone that had obtained what we would define as enlightenment. However, what he had said is that we're already enlightened,
Hmm.
all of us anyway. We're just identifying with the outward egoic. But when you identify the I am that's having the experience, you already understand that it's all knowing, it's already enlightened. It's just a state that has been obscured beneath the layers of the ego and false identification.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, beautiful. That's exactly, I mean, that's a big part of, I mean, I heard that first in Buddhism, and it's like so refreshing to think, oh, I don't have to actually change to be
Yes.
completely free. I don't have to, I can be completely free in, having to work a 9 to 5 job. I can be completely free. Freedom is not anything external. I can be in a cage the rest of my life and be
Mm,
deeply free. And I know that is real, that is possible. That is how it works. Our experience is internally based, manifests externally. And
mm,
then it's a matter of gaining dexterity over the mind, becoming aware of how it's functioning and how it's creating experience, and then giving ourselves deeper and deeper permission, honestly. When any experience arises, asking the question, is this okay? And does this mean I'm not free? If I feel pain, if I feel lack, if I feel awkward, does this mean I'm not enlightened? Does this mean I'm not free? Does this mean this isn't God coming through me right now? Just asking the question. Um, and then opening it up, because again, even with enlightenment and God, we have such a almost like a contracted view of, oh, this is what it looks like. God doesn't bawl his eyes out. God doesn't feel like he's not enough sometimes. Are you sure? How do you know? And it's a and this is all part of a process, all part of a refinement, a purification, and recognizing, in those less savory experiences, there is a benefit. There's a necessity to show you something about yourself, to show you something about life, and recognizing almost the perfection in all of it. And then where are we? Is nirvana something to find elsewhere? Is heaven on earth something that we gotta die in order to enter? Or could it be right here, right now?
yeah.
And who says it can't?
Yes.
Mm,
Yeah,
mm.
very well put. Well, let me see. Do you want to maybe next week do a live stream or something on YouTube? And
Yeah,
that might get
I've
you a
never.
few
Yeah,
more followers as well on YouTube. And then in the meantime, we can just keep chatting. I'm going to talk to this lady that I work with who's in Maui uh, in about 5 minutes, and I'll have some more idea and I'll just keep letting you know about it.
cool. Yeah, and I just real quick, I heard. So this is recorded.
Oh yeah, I did record this. Yes, I have
Sweet.
recorded it.
If you want, could you send that to me so I could
Yes,
just put that on?
absolutely. Yeah, I'll send it over to you. I will
Feel free to
pop it
post it if you want.
in Google Drive or something and send you the link.
Amazing,
And
great,
you can share it if you want. It's like yours to have, like
cool, cool. I appreciate it. Yeah, no, it was a great conversation just off the
yeah, it was
bat.
great. Yeah, it was amazing. I love that.
Mm.
Okay, well, let's stay in touch and we'll try to organize something for next week. We'll do like a
Definitely.
live or something for YouTube and see, it gives you more exposure to more people and you just keep doing the videos that you're doing. They're wonderful.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, that'd be great. I really appreciate you reaching out and
My
yeah,
pleasure.
like trying to grow. I've been waiting for, I know this resonates. I've been waiting for people that want to link because again, this can't be like a solo thing.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, so thank you.
My pleasure, my pleasure. Well, I look forward to connecting with you soon.
Likewise. Cool.
Okay.
Well,
All right.
enjoy the next call
I
and we'll be
will.
in
Thank
touch.
you. Yes, thanks,
Yeah.
Benjamin. All right. Bye.
Yeah, later.